In the dusty basement of a Princeton house, amongst forgotten books and yellowed letters, a reel-to-reel tape recorder sat silent for over 60 years. Its existence was known only to one person, the nurse who cared for Albert Einstein in his May final months, who guarded this secret like sacred treasure until her own passing. When her belongings were finally catalogued, the tape emerged like a ghost from the past, carrying words that should never have been spoken publicly, confessions that challenge everything we know about one of humanity's greatest geniuses. The recording was made on a winter afternoon in 1954, a few months before Einstein's death. His voice, though weakened by age and illness, carried an almost supernatural serenity, as if already half detached from earthly bonds. There was no more time for scientific protocols or academic caution. The man who revolutionized our understanding of the universe was about to embark on his own journey into the unknown, and his words flowed like water from a long-dammed spring. Einstein began his confession by speaking of the dreams that increasingly visited him. They weren't ordinary dreams, he explained, but visits from his sister Maya, who had passed away 2 years earlier. She always appeared enveloped in a golden light, not as the elderly woman she had been in life, but as the bright young girl he had known in childhood. In these dream encounters, she spoke of a place where mathematical equations became music, where the laws of physics danced like living beings, and where time wasn't a dimension, but an ocean in which all souls swam in harmony. The physicist described how these experiences initially disturbed him. His whole life had been dedicated to reason, to the scientific method, to the pursuit of truths that could be proven and demonstrated. But the encounters with Maya carried an authenticity that defied any rational explanation. She shared knowledge Einstein had never studied, revealed aspects of reality that his theories only touched upon. It was as if, from the other side of the veil, she had access to a cosmic library where all the answers were written in the language of light. Gradually, Einstein began to realize that other family members were also visiting him. His father, Hermann, appeared occasionally, always, smiling with that paternal expression that young Albert had so loved. His visits were quieter, communicating through gestures and meaningful glances. It was as if he wanted to convey that death was not an end, but a transformation as natural as water becoming steam. The fatherly presence brought a profound peace, a certainty that all earthly worries were merely fleeting illusions. But it was the encounter with his first wife, Mileva, that impressed him the most. She had died 3 years earlier, and her appearance carried all the complexities of their earthly relationship, but transformed into something luminous and compassionate. Mileva spoke of forgiveness, of how the wounds of the heart dissolve when the soul is freed from the limitations of the ego. She explained that on the spiritual plane, love was the only truly real force, and that all other emotions were merely shadows cast by the ignorance of separation. Einstein recounted how these experiences began to alter his perception of reality. He had always suspected that consciousness was more than mere chemical reactions in the brain, but now he had personal evidence that the mind could exist independently of matter. His theories on space-time gained new dimensions when viewed through the spiritual lens. If time was relative, if past and future coexisted simultaneously, then death might be merely a change of perspective, a leap from one temporal dimension to another. The physicist described how he began to experience increasingly extraordinary phenomena. Objects in his house moved without apparent explanation, not dramatically, but with an almost affectionate gentleness, as if invisible hands were organizing his environment. Books would open to specific pages, always containing passages that related to his current contemplations. Family photographs would fall from shelves and land gently on his desk, as if wanting to remind him that family ties transcended physical existence. One morning, Einstein awoke with the feeling that he wasn't alone in his room. The atmosphere felt dense, charged with a loving but intense presence. Gradually, a figure began to materialize in the armchair beside his bed. It was his mother, Pauline, who had died more than 3 decades earlier. She no longer looked like the woman he had known. She was simultaneously young and timeless, radiating a wisdom that seemed to contain all the secrets of the universe. Pauline spoke of the nature of the soul, explaining that each conscious being was like a drop in the cosmic ocean, apparently separate but eternally connected to the totality. She described how, after death, the soul didn't lose its individuality, but expanded its consciousness to encompass unimaginable dimensions. Family relationships, far from disappearing, transformed into something deeper and more significant, freed from the limitations and conflicts that characterize earthly existence. Einstein's spiritual mother revealed that what we call death is merely the moment when the soul remembers its true nature. It's like waking from a vivid dream. For a moment, we still carry the impressions of the dream experience, but gradually, we remember who we really are. She explained that souls remain connected by bonds of love that are stronger than any known physical force, and that these connections serve as bridges between worlds. Einstein was profoundly impressed when Pauline began to speak about scientific concepts he was developing in his final years. She described the unification of fundamental forces using poetic metaphors that paradoxically were more illuminating than his mathematical equations. He spoke of light as the language through which souls communicate, of how every loving thought created ripples that reverberated through unseen dimensions. In the following months, the spiritual visitations intensified. He began to realize he was being prepared for his own transition. His loved ones from beyond seemed to be building a bridge between worlds, easing his passage when the time came. They showed him glimpses of what awaited, not a physical place, but a state of consciousness where knowledge wasn't acquired through study, but simply remembered as part of the soul's essential nature. The physicist described a particularly transformative experience during a stormy night. He had fallen asleep in his study chair when he was awakened by celestial music that seemed to come from all directions simultaneously. Opening his eyes, he saw his office bathed in a golden light that cast no shadows. All his deceased relatives were present, not as ethereal apparitions, but as vibrant, loving presences that filled the room with indescribable joy. In that moment, he understood that family wasn't just a social or biological construct, but fair cosmic reality. Souls cluster in spiritual families who share purposes and lessons across multiple existences. Familial love is an earthly reflection of this deeper connection, a dim but persistent memory of a unity that transcends time and space. When we die, we don't lose our family. We rejoin its truest and fullest form. His sister approached him, in this collective vision, and touched his forehead with infinite tenderness. In that touch he felt as if all the universe's mysteries were instantly revealed. He understood that consciousness was the fundamental fabric of reality, that matter was merely consciousness condensed into temporary forms. The equations he had developed during his life were rudimentary approximations of deeper truths that could only be fully grasped through the direct experience of the liberated soul. The vision showed him that each person carries within them a star map pointing home, not the earthly home, but the soul's origin place in the cosmos. The spiritual family serves as a cosmic navigation system, helping each member find their way back through the dimensions of existence. Familial love is like a cosmic radio frequency. Once tuned in, the connection remains clear regardless of physical or temporal distance. He realized his recurring dreams of family reunions were actually experiences on a subtler plane of reality. During sleep, his consciousness shifted to dimensions where the physical laws governing our material world didn't apply. There, he truly met his loved ones, sharing experiences as real as any event in his waking life. Death, he understood, would simply be a permanent awakening in this broader dimension of existence. The physicist recounted how this understanding completely transformed his perspective on life and death. He no longer feared the end of his earthly existence, knowing it was merely a transition to a more expansive state of being. His scientific discoveries, once seemingly his greatest legacies, now revealed themselves as preparation for even deeper understandings, only possible after the release of physical limitations. He began to perceive signs that his departure was approaching. These weren't medical symptoms, but subtle indications only a soul in transition could recognize. His spiritual family appeared more frequently, always with expressions of anticipatory joy, as if organizing a welcoming celebration. The atmosphere around him grew progressively lighter, as if the barriers between worlds were gradually dissolving. One night, while contemplating the stars from his bedroom window, he had his deepest experience. His consciousness seemed to expand, beyond the limits of his physical body, embracing first his home, then the town, then the entire planet. He could feel the presence of all incarnate and discarnate souls, each shining like a star in an infinite galaxy of consciousness. In that moment of cosmic unity, he understood that separation was truly an illusion. All of existence was a single soul expressing itself through infinite forms and experiences. In this expansion of consciousness, he saw how each familial relationship was a microcosm of universal unity. When we truly love someone, we connect with their eternal essence, which is identical to our own divine essence. Death cannot break this connection because it exists at the most fundamental level of reality, the level where all souls are one soul, where all love is the same infinite love knowing itself through different perspectives. The physicist realized his entire life had been a preparation for this moment of understanding. His theories on relativity were intuitions about the illusory nature of separation in time and space. His quest for a unified theory was, in fact, a spiritual quest for understanding the unity underlying all existence. Science had been his path to God, though he hadn't consciously recognized this for most of his journey. In his final days, he underwent a remarkable transformation. His earthly personality, with its idiosyncrasies and limitations, began to dissolve, revealing something more universal and luminous beneath. Those who visited noted he seemed to be communicating simultaneously with them and with unseen presences, his eyes often focusing on points in space where nothing was visible to other observers. He spoke of how individual consciousness was like a wave in the ocean, apparently separate, but always part of the greater vastness. When the wave dissolves, it doesn't disappear. It simply returns to its oceanic source, retaining all the information and experience it gained during its journey as an individualized form. Similarly, when the soul leaves the body, it doesn't lose its identity, but expands to include aspects of itself that were temporarily forgotten during the physical incarnation. He described how in the final moments of life, the soul prepares for the transition through a process of review and integration. It's not an external judgment, but an opportunity for consciousness to understand the meaning and purpose of its earthly experience. Each relationship is revisited, each lesson integrated, each moment of love recognized as a spark of divinity manifesting through human form. During this preparation process, loved ones who have already transitioned serve as loving guides, helping the soul remember its true nature and destiny. They appear not to take us away, but to remind us that we were never truly separated. The family reunion after death is, in fact, the recognition of a unity that always existed, but was temporarily obscured by the illusion of physical separation. He revealed that, in his last moments of physical consciousness, he experienced an extraordinary vision. He saw himself as a child running across a golden field toward a luminous house where all his family awaited him. These weren't just the relatives he'd known on Earth, but a far broader cosmic family, souls who had shared journeys with him across eras and dimensions. The house wasn't a physical building, but a state of being where love was the only reality, where all pain had been transformed into wisdom, where all separation had been revealed as a temporary cosmic joke. In this final vision, he understood that death was, in fact, the greatest scientific experiment of all, the moment when individual consciousness reconnects with universal consciousness and all theories and speculations dissolve into the direct experience of truth. He saw that his scientific work had been valuable not only for its contributions to human knowledge, but because it had prepared his mind to understand even deeper truths that could only be accessed through transcending physical limitations. The family awaiting him on the other side wasn't just emotional comfort, but a cosmic reality, the community of souls with whom he had chosen to explore the mysteries of existence through countless forms and experiences. As the recording concluded, his final words echoed as a spiritual testament to all humankind. He spoke of how each person carries within them the same capacities for cosmic connection that he had discovered. The spiritual family isn't a privilege reserved for great scientists or mystics, but but the birthright of every conscious soul. The familial love we feel on earth is just a sample of the cosmic banquet awaiting us when we finally remember our true identity as beings of light, temporarily playing in the garden of matter. The discovery of this recording casts an entirely new light on his legacy. His contributions to physics remain monumental, but perhaps his greatest discovery was personal and spiritual. The understanding that consciousness is eternal, that familial love transcends death, and that each soul is simultaneously unique and universal. His final words suggest that the true unified theory will not be found merely in mathematical equations, but in the direct experience of the unity that connects all consciousnesses in an infinite cosmic family, where each member is simultaneously child, parent, sibling of all others, where love is not merely an emotion, but the very fundamental fabric of reality, and where death reveals itself as the greatest reunion of all, not with strangers in an unknown place, but with our eternal family in our true home.